Hello, my wellbeing buddies. This is Steve, your mental health nurse, and I'm going to do a little bit about a lived experience with ADHD. So all the time I get questions in primary healthcare or now secondary healthcare. How do I know if I've got it? Everyone's got it. It's on the increase, and the reason it's on the increase is because we're aware of it. We are now able to assess it and diagnose it a little bit quicker. So my story really came off the back of me going through university, realizing that I was slightly different in the way that I thought. Then I had some work up in London, and I worked with some colleagues there who then gave me the name called Steve Speed. And I had somebody else call me the panicker because I would view something several times and come up with 12 different best or worst case scenarios. Has its strengths and weaknesses there. And then I thought, look, I know something's not right. And the more I advanced in my world of mental health, the more I started to recognize it in other people and then myself. And then eventually I did my training and I'm now able to assess, treat and diagnose ADHD across the lifespan. So the reason I did that was because I knew the chaos it caused me. So we'll start off with childhood and we'll work our way through. So as a child, I did some very strange things. And when I was challenged about it, I couldn't give an answer. My mum would say to me, why have you done that? I don't know. And it was weird because I couldn't give an answer and I was quite impulsive and I would just rush and do things. And at school, I was always told Steve could do really well if he just slowed down. Steve could do really well. He's slightly enthusiastic. Stephen would do well, but he needs to concentrate a bit more. But equally, apart from that, I then had my other side, which was my emotional side. So I was a little bit up and down on my emotions. So one day I could be really happy. The next day I might be a little bit sadder. And the next day I could be happy again. So it would switch on and off just with no reason or cause. As I moved through my teens, it became a little bit more problematic because, again, what then happens, most people with ADHD will end up with some level of trauma of some kind, and that's through impulsivity, hyperactivity, poor emotional regulation, willing to trust people all the time, unable to be that assertive kind of standing up, and recognizing the world. So quite gullible, following what everyone says and does. The problem with ADHD is this high addictive side. So anything that makes you feel good, it's not difficult to make somebody with ADHD feel loved and accepted and wanted and good. So that leaves you quite open to grooming and all those other sides around risk, or indeed end up in toxic relationships because you can end up being with somebody because you feel needed rather than you feel loved. We won't go there. So we move on, and then through my work, through my school, through my secondary school, I loved creativity. I wasn't very academic. I'm not very academic. I keep saying I'm not very academic. I think I've got a little bit better at that. But I got through school and I struggled. I was really good at the vocational stuff. So anything that was hands-on, anything that involved being theatrical, drama, and all that lot, I could probably do better than what I would do at writing and essays and maths. And God, I hated maths. I loved to learn. I wanted to learn. I just wasn't very good at learning. So then that pushed me into the world of vocational learning. And I'd already done that video where I said my lane switched. I had somebody who inspired me, and I realized quite quickly and very early on that I had this high level of adrenaline and work. So I could do a night shift, then followed by a day shift, then followed by another night shift. And I couldn't understand why everyone around me was so slow. And I remember once being told off and said, Steve, we only rush if it's an emergency. But for me, that was my normal speed. And when I was looking around me, I felt like the world was playing out in a little bit slow motion. So that then became a bit frustrating because I thought, well, hang on a minute, what's going on here? Why am I doing everything and nobody else seems to be? And then that may have been a bit more pressure that I put on myself. Ultimately, I ended up with the same problems a lot of people do with ADHD. I then found a problem with alcohol. So the good old binge drinking. So I wouldn't say I was an alcoholic by any stretch of the imagination. But what happened was I became a binge drinker. So when I did drink, I couldn't stop. And it wasn't the fact that I wanted to drink to get drunk. I just couldn't stop. Something in my brain was just like, no, keep going, keep going, keep going. And it doesn't matter. And then I had the same relationship with food. So I would then eat. So I then had to have weight loss surgery to kind of correct that. And even with my weight loss surgery, I remember turning around and saying to the surgeon, you need to take my stomach away. I can't be trusted with it. And then things that made me feel good, I took to the extreme. So this addictive personality thing became quite problematic for me. So then I had to start managing all of that. Then what happened is I had lots of people that I knew, but I would burn relationships quite quickly. And that was with my honesty, because I genuinely thought I was being kind and helpful to people by being honest. What I then realized after a while, somebody said to me, Steve, only give your opinion if somebody asks for it. And I kind of thought, oh, that's a little bit of a telling off. And then I learned the hard way that actually perhaps I was a little bit too honest with some people. So honesty becomes a real problem, just telling and saying what's on the top of my mind. So problem with focusing, problem with concentrating, problem with the speed of work, problem with relationships, problem with talking to people, problem with substances. So you can see there is a lot of problems with ADHD here. Then what would happen is I would feel that I could take on the world. So I could do 100 jobs. And when people talk to me, I'd say, look, I've lived 3 lives. So when it's my time to part this planet, I know I will not be laying there going, I regret anything. I have done everything. I've done impulsive stuff, jumping off of towers and you name it, scuba diving and everything that I could possibly do to feel that adrenaline rush and that life and squeezing it all in. But what then happens is you then lay at bed at night and you can't turn your mind off. Your head's spinning and spiraling. And then you would think something. And then I would lay in bed thinking about something and thinking about it and thinking about it. And I thought, I just got to get up and do it. So then I would get up and do it. So I was then having thoughts that I couldn't turn off. And that might be, I just need to jot this down. I just need to do that. I just need to do that. So I couldn't turn off the ruminating, the overthinking and the spiraling. And then finally, my enthusiastic side, and I love to call it my enthusiastic side rather than my slightly annoying side. My enthusiastic side, I could see when I started to read the room and slow everything down a bit that I was probably slightly annoying. So when we talk about ADHD, we then think that is a lot going on there. And of course, we then get misdiagnosed. Oh, you've got depression. No, I don't think I've ever had depression. I have been sad at times, but I don't feel I've ever been depressed. And knowing what I know about depression and knowing about the people that I've worked with depression, I know that I've never felt that. People go, oh, you've got bipolar, you're very up and down. And again, it's not that at all. It's this adrenaline rush that makes you a bit hyper, and then this drop where you're tired that just makes you a bit low. That's the high and low. I've been accused of having a personality disorder and being EUPD almost. And again, it's not that at all. It's we have 1,000 thoughts. We might act on 10 of them and only one of them comes true. Or we may say something and then people are holding us to that. And that's not what it is either. So being misdiagnosed and having lots of labels thrown around at you is really unhelpful as well. So what happened when I did my training and I finally got the diagnosis? My brain just stopped. It all slowed down and the world made sense. And I thought, I get it now. I understand that. And what I have found since my diagnosis, my brain has slowed down. It's just slowed. It's allowing me time to think. It's allowing me time to reflect. And there was a wonderful website called How to ADHD who I have to give credit to, I think does a fabulous job. She does this cool scientific-y bit, then she does this piece on how to manage it. And I love her enthusiasm and her energy levels. And I think for me, I related, and all of those videos that I watched about emotional regulation and managing your behavior and dealing with anger and relationships, I just got it all made sense. So then when I was in primary healthcare assessing people, I could see an awful lot. And I think what happens in neurodivergent people, we kind of click together. You can see, I can almost see somebody with ADHD before they recognize it. We do the assessments and ultimately they come out. So what I want to say is my lived experience with ADHD has given me two things. It's given me a lot of problems, but all of those problems you learn to deal with, and they only become a problem if you ignore them. And what you need to do, you need to tackle them head on with good psychoeducation, good quality advice, because your brain, if it's anything like mine, will do this. If you're talking to me and you tell me to hug a pillow, I'm going to go, be quiet. You have no idea what you're talking about. But if you say to me, look, Steve, if you hug that pillow, it releases a chemical called your oxytocin part of the brain. It floods the brain with this happiness chemical, and hugging will just make you feel better. My brain will go, oh, all right then, that makes sense. You told me why, and you give me a way to do it. So in therapy and when talking to people, our brain just requires a little bit more. We just need to understand something and then we can apply it. And the more we understand, the more we recognize the symptoms, the more we recognize the behaviors, and the easier it is to control everything and bring it down. Does it mean that my life's perfect? Absolutely not at times. But what I do is I recognize when I'm spiraling, I recognize when I'm overthinking, and I can use those distraction techniques that we've done in previous videos, those breathing techniques, the progressive muscle relaxation techniques, visualization, mindfulness, grounding skills, and all of those skills help. They just slow it all down. But the benefits of ADHD are I'm a creative person. It allows me to think very differently to other people. It gives me 12 outcomes to any one situation, so I can problem solve quite well. So the benefits of having it, I kind of call it a bit of a superpower, because my partner, I call a sloth in the nicest possible way, because compare me at 100 miles an hour to my partner, we're a bit like the hare and the tortoise. And I can see to somebody who doesn't have ADHD, thinking and problem solving. But for me, it comes instantly. And what I then have to do is just work down rather than work up. So ADHD gives me that superpower. It's given me stamina. It means that I can keep going when others are falling down. And when I look around, I go, gosh, you know, why can't you keep up with me? It's because of that. So ultimately, when you reframe something and you rethink about it, ADHD is pretty cool. It's a cool thing to have. You just need to learn to manage it. And as I say to every single person that I've assessed and diagnosed, up until this point, your brain has been managing you. What you now need to do is hold your head and you manage your brain, and just recognize those signs and symptoms, and you will live much better with ADHD. And let's not forget, it is a disability, and therefore at work, at uni, at school, you are entitled to reasonable adjustments to manage your world. And those reasonable adjustments make it so much easier to exist. And equally, have an open and candid relationship with the people around you. I have said to many people, I can walk in a room and make 100 people laugh, and then I could say something and it's like the air has been sucked out of the room. And I haven't said it deliberately, I've just said it without thinking. So it's really important for you to have that honesty with people and for them to understand your personality and you, because it takes away that tension, and it means I haven't burnt any relationships, I haven't lost any friends for the last couple of years. So it's really important to learn that skill. Anyway, that's my lived experience of ADHD. If you resonate with any of it, it may be worthwhile you having an assessment and diagnosis. the treatment, I've done it in the other ADHD video. So I wish you all the best of luck and thanks for watching. Bye for now.